I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, foreign direct investments into the Philippines registers net inflows of $642 million in October. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry starts the year with a three-year track with an agenda to bring back foreign investors and create jobs. Newly elected PCCI President Ferdinand Peri Ferrer joins us live. And in People Profit Planet, we speak with leader of Light Global founder Iliac Diaz and on scaling up solar lamp use here and overseas, reducing energy poverty in off-grid areas. Foreign direct investments into the Philippines posted net inflows of $642 million in October. That's more than double of the $320 million recorded in September. Data from the Bangko Sentral show FDI net inflows reached over $6 billion from January to October last year. That's lower than the $8.2 billion posted in the same period in 2024. Japan emerged as the top source of foreign capital in October, while the US and Singapore also drove equity investments over the 10-month period. The central bank said industries that received most of these investments were manufacturing, wholesale and retail trade, and real estate. Most inflows went into debt instruments, with smaller amounts directed to reinvested earnings and other investments. The Metro Manila Wage Board has opened talks to raise the minimum pay of kasambahays or domestic workers. The NCR division of the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board held its first hearing yesterday to gather thoughts from labor groups, employer representatives, and domestic workers themselves. Based on the most recent wage order on January 4, 2025, domestic workers in Metro Manila get a minimum monthly pay of around 9,000 pesos, above the 7,000 peso current minimum level set nationwide. NCR Wage Board Chairperson Sara Buena Mirasol tells Business World she's optimistic that wage hike proposals for kasambahays will be granted following last year's 50 peso daily pay increase for formal sector employees. But employer representative Federico Marquez Jr. says while families living in gated subdivisions can afford the wage hike, employees earning less than 50,000 pesos a month will truly feel its impact. Marquez urges a balanced approach between affordability and worker welfare. Mirasol says the NCR Wage Board could release its decision as early as January 15th. In other news, President Bongbong Marcos has arrived in the United Arab Emirates for a working visit. He will attend the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, where he is also set to sign several agreements, including the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA. The Philippines and the UAE are likewise expected to ink a Memorandum of Understanding on defense cooperation. While Marcos is abroad, Executive Secretary Ralph Recto, Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella, and Social Welfare Chief Rex Gatchalian are designated as caretakers. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry is taking on 2026 with a three-track agenda, and these include better governance, positioning the Philippines as a competitive investment and trade hub, and massive skills upgrading as the economy remains hobbled after the after-effects of a corruption scandal. Well, with us now for more is the newly elected president of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ferdinand Peri Ferrer. He is also chairman and CEO of EMS Group Companies, a major electronics manufacturer and exporter. Congratulations, Peri, and welcome back to the program.
Hi, good morning, Cathy, and thank you for inviting me in your program.
Right, so first off, who in the private sectors joined PBBM in UAE, and what meetings as well as deals are expected?
I believe the UAE, and we see the Middle East as a frontier when it comes to investments. this is beyond the contributions of our OFWs who has been in the Middle East or UAE. We see technology-driven investments coming from the Middle East, from the UAE and its surrounding neighbors. So we're looking forward to working with that cluster, with that region, 2026 and 2027.
Let's talk about that three-track agenda because you've built that around your leadership at the PCCI, which started this year. How do they align with the government's catch-up plans following the corruption scandal?
I'll put aside the corruption scandal for now, but we see globally there's still a lot of volatility in the market, and you can call it uncertainty. So one of our priority programs is economic resiliency for the members, especially the MSMEs. Our task really is to look for new markets locally and more importantly, internationally. We're working with the Department of Trade and all the FTAs and also upcoming trade agreements, one being personally handled by the president, but there are upcoming FTAs that our business people, MSMEs, can take advantage and really see new markets with that.
But Perry, you can't put that away. We can't put away the corruption scandal as an aside because it's really the reason why the economy slowed and fiscal spending is now having to play catch up. So how is the private sector now going to deal with that, the waiting time and the efforts that can be done to shorten that period?
When it comes to the corruption scandal, currently where the private sector sits, we're looking at judicial efficiency. If we can really put those people, those involved in this scandal to jail or really in sentencing fast, and then Filipinos can see the efficiency of our judicial system, not only our citizens, but also the international community. That could give an uptick when it comes to credibility. But again, we're looking at more regulatory consistency. How can the implementation and simplification of our laws and procedure? And we want to be I won't call it a watchdog, but as partners of the government in ensuring that this 1+ trillion 2026 budget, that the private sector is involved in monitoring and taking a look, is it used properly or is it costed? More importantly, Cathy, are the projects costed efficiently and properly?
Because what is the worst case scenario, say, of the unresolved government corruption and governance challenges and how that trips up the three-track agenda that you've set out so far for PCCI under your leadership?
If the process is slow, the credibility and the confidence of investors, both local and international, will keep on declining. And the opportunities for the Philippines, we have these opportunities regionally as markets. The supply chain is becoming regionalized, and we should capture that opportunity. So now I believe that it's a private sector's turn to be able to work with the government as their second arm in ensuring the public, the citizens, that we are now monitoring where our taxpayers' money is spent. It's not enough allocating money to project. What we are going after is the funds correct or is the cost correct for certain projects in the budget. Costing is the most important, and what we are discussing now is the actions, the corrective actions or the procedural changes that will prevent reoccurrence of these anomalies. Kathy, I'm in manufacturing. When we have rejects or out of specs in our production line, the first thing we do is isolate and then contain that reject. But more importantly, we come up with corrective actions or procedures for these rejects or out of spec parts not to repeat itself. And I applied that together with the government. If we do not have corrective actions or procedural changes in allocations on how budget or how projects are costed, then I believe it will continue to repeat. And that's one of the concerns of the private sector.
So how much time is the private sector still giving the government? Because the government said some heads will roll before Christmas, and now we're here and we're still looking at the same kinds of questions with no answers.
That's $1 million question there, Kathy. There's the patience of the Filipinos, there's a lot of patience. But what's more concerning are the patience of the investors, the foreign investors. So they are looking at our country, what is the government doing, or what is the private sector doing to assist the government. So all this comes into play. That is why from the private sector side, we are accelerating our involvement on how to monitor and how to provide ideas and hopefully technical solutions in order to ensure the public and the investors that the funds, this 1+ trillion budget for 2026, will be used for the Philippines and for the Filipinos.
We've got about a minute. Maybe we could end on a high note. I mean, you're at EMS and you're dealing with clients. Have you gotten new business for the year so far? If not from the US, maybe from the region, from the ASEAN?
Yes. Starting the second half of 2025, we've seen, at least in the semiconductor and electronics, even in our company, we've seen an uptick when it comes to opportunities and also converting opportunities to real contracts here in the Philippines. So again, we're hiring again. We're working on skills development because the projects we are getting are technology-driven contracts. So aside from the normal just assembly, the typical assembly, electronics assembly, we're getting some higher value projects coming into the Philippines. The Philippines is within the radar here regionally on where companies will be investing in the region. So I think it's an opportunity. We believe it's an opportunity for the Philippines to really go out there and present and take these opportunities here and bring it back to the Philippines.
All right. Well, all is not lost then. We'll continue to catch up, Perry, on those investments. Thank you so much for joining us and congratulations in your new role. Perry Ferrer of the PCCI. In corporate news, Manila Electric Company or Meralco announced another reduction in electricity rates this January. The new adjustment lowers charges by 16.37 centavos, bringing the overall rate for a typical household to 12.95 pesos per kilowatt hour. This translates to around 33 pesos in savings for households consuming 200 kilowatt hours. Meralco said that the lower transmission charge contributed to the overall rate cut. And you're watching Money Talks. Coming right up, we'll speak with Leader of Light Global founder Eliac Diaz and People Profit Planet. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Heading into our markets roundup, U.S. equities shrugged off threats by the Trump administration to meddle with the Fed's independence. The Nasdaq rose yesterday, Monday, by 0.25%. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 advanced by 0.1% each. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked up to 4.186% following the announcement of a criminal inquiry into Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Gold prices posted a new record high, closing at $4,604 per ounce. Silver also reached a fresh high at $84 per ounce. U.S. futures point to a decline when the markets open later tonight Manila time. The Nasdaq falls by 1/3%, S&P 500 by 0.2%, and the Dow by 0.1%. Asian markets are tracking Wall Street gains this Tuesday. Japan's Nikkei 225 up over 3%. Investors buoyed by expectations of a snap elections in February. Both Australia's ASX 200 and South Korea's Kospi gained by nearly 1% each. Let's take a look at our own markets. PCCI opening this Tuesday higher by less than 0.1%, 6,424. The stock market soared past 6,400, fueled by expectations of another domestic rate cut. The broader all-shares index rose by nearly 1%, with local counters all in the green, led by mining and oil. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today a tad weaker, 59.28 to the dollar. Fresh attacks in Powell caused the local unit to slide further at 59.26 against the greenback, even as the dollar depreciated against currencies, including the euro, British pound, and Swiss franc. The 10-year government bond yields ticked up to 6.033% from the previous close of 6.027%. He is a Filipino social entrepreneur behind Leader of Light, a grassroots movement that teaches communities to build their own solar lamps from simple, locally available materials. His organization now operates in 32 countries and in July 2025 set a new Guinness World Record in Manila for the world's largest display of 3,500 hand-built solar-powered lamps. The public art installation at the National Museum was crafted by women's cooperatives and then donated to off-grid Filipino communities. With us now for more, the global founder of Leader of Light and climate artist, Iliac Angelo Diaz. Good seeing you, Iliac.
Thank you very much, Cathy.
To the program.
Business and environment and community impact. I'm just
Indeed.
so glad that you put this in there, your show. Thank you.
Yeah, it is an intersection indeed that causes us to talk about social enterprise,
Yes.
which you've done for so many years. I'm really interested in just seeing the pictures. I mean, very beautiful. It's an eye candy, but I know that they've gone to a community or various communities in Region 4, and that is powering the off-grid residents for the past year. How are they doing so far, and what is the conversion rate looking like?
So, absolutely, the difference between philanthropy, which is really a cash burn, and social enterprise, where you take a business solution and then expand it. Who would have thought that, from in the middle of the Pacific, an island in the middle of the Pacific, we're now helping more than 1 million people a year. There are, of course, the reason why we do the Guinness World Record, and that's because our particular business model of membership or people donating to a cause is not really that strong here on the 25 and below. And philanthropy is not consistent. So social enterprise allows us to get companies to buy the material, very similar to Habitat, and pay a small fee for us to be able to make workshops there and then donate it. Now, the timing is really important, Cathy, because doing work during the storm or when the storm hits, practically scientifically proven, 20 storms, 5 destructive, is the most expensive. Up to 60% of your money is spent just on logistics to move it. And so what we do is we make this Guinness World Record, get thousands of lights, and we have the largest storage of lights before the storm. Cheaper, more efficient. And then after, during the storm, that's when we distribute them to communities in need.
All right, so the communities in need in 4A, how are they doing right now?
Well,
being powered up in off-grid
currently,
areas?
there is a little bit of as I said, some foundations understand, some corporate foundations understand, and some Right now, it's been 4 months, and we haven't yet donated it because the corporates wants to be in the 20 schools to be able to donate it themselves. It's very different from our other corporates where they allow us to donate it for them, and they don't have to be represented in each and every school.
Would that be in corporates in say, India and in the Middle East,
Yeah.
in Dubai? Because you've done the same
Yes,
and
so
also
immediately-
achieved Guinness World Records in setting up these installations.
Right. So for UAE, we donate them to refugee camps. In India, of course, there's 20 million people without lights. And our third one, of course, when we did it here, as I said, there's something of an adjustment that, the lights need to be given as soon as possible. But yes, we're just waiting for them to show up in the school so we can donate the lights. But
Let's talk about those lights. Very interesting because they're solar lamps and they get built by
By hand, yes,
by
yeah, yeah.
hand. It's handmade. How do they light up?
So this is the interesting thing there. When you talk about green jobs, the fastest rising economic group, right, in other countries, we're just selling imported solar lights. But if you really want to build resilience, you have to build them here. Why? Because most solar lights, you will see in government agencies, after 5 years, the street lights will break. And so they have to buy every single one again. The emergency lights will last 2 years. They use, nickel. They use a very, how do you say, solar is consumptive. It breaks. And so by building solar lights with local parts, either out of pottery, out of bamboo, out of recycled plastics, we're able to get an army of people that are solar engineers. We can immediately build it when we need it. Do you know that the United Nations OCHA, in charge of refugees, says 60 to 80% of every dollar spent is on logistics. That means if you don't build a local resilience, you will end up importing all of these food and mostly consumptive. And so with Liter of Light, we're thinking about the years ahead when climate change starts really displacing people, making us on the front lines. We are unable to adapt. And so I was thinking by doing something that's open source in every region, right, with local parts, we will have to have at least emergency solar lights. Because when you see these disaster areas, crimes against women, children, because they're getting burned, because they're using kerosene lamps as emergency in their small tents, they're getting third-degree burn. So this is not the way forward. We can do something clean energy. The bulbs are motorcycle 12 volts. So if it breaks, you go to a local shop, you replace it. The parts are radio parts, so they're available. And do you know that we produce solar cells? We export them to China, and they come back several times in solar panels. So when I'm thinking about green jobs, I'm saying, what is our local capacity? Because to depend on international one, especially disaster, you have to wait for them to line you up in the production, then ship it to you, and then put it in a box, put it on a ship. So by the time it reaches here, we can't deal with it
Part of
this
that
way.
ecosystem of green jobs really is the overseas Filipino workers,
Yes.
which you've mentioned send a lot of money home, but goes to the
Yes.
rebuild of communities when disaster strikes. There is a bit of resilience and a lot of it in your social enterprise, but how do you build that in so that the migrant worker sends money to improve quality of life rather than rebuild and
So-
spend for it?
It's very interesting, Cathy, because we are part of the board of the Loss and Damage Fund. For many years,
For climate of Paris.
yes. So, COP27. So we
COP27.
fought for 27 years because the money for climate crisis was mostly said, look, we will keep the money, polluting countries, we will keep the money and we will green our industries. For loss and damage, we'll promise, but will not actually allow you to use that money or donate to a fund where you can build resilience, right? So when I say resilience, that means how do you rebuild? How do you rebuild better, right? For what is known as a cycle of disasters. This is not like, oh my gosh, we're in another storm, we're flooded. Unfortunately, what happened was only after 27 years in Egypt, that's where I made my first Guinness World Record, right? I wrote, "The power is yours," because I was trying to say to developing countries, you have to start looking at local strength because of this loss and damage. And so when countries that have caused the pollution are not giving money to this fund, although there's promises, It turns out that the Filipinos, 85% up, is sending money back to the country to rebuild their villages every single time. You're talking about, they always talk about us as victims. That's not true. The Filipino overseas workers are the hero of the climate, except nobody recognizes because they send in $100, $200 to rebuild the villages. But 85% of the reconstruction is on the backs of OFWs. Now, let me tell you, Cathy, it's sort of a misconception that that we're always being given grants, but that's 1% of the rebuilding. The OFWs are been misaligned because they're always asking for funds. When you make the country in a position where they don't have funds and they have to beg to rebuild their own family homes every single year because of a climate crisis that was not caused by the country, you make them seem the beggars of the world. In fact, the Filipino was pushed on a train track.
Let me pick up on hero. I like that word because you take on a certain hero that's really powered you in your 20, 30 years, and you brought your favorite icon, is it?
Well, this is Captain Planet, and this is the costume that we wear for UN protest.
Where's the costume?
Let me show it. So Captain Planet. So Captain Planet was the first environmental hero. Do you want me to put the costume on? And it was done right here in the Philippines. So Captain Planet, he's the hero going to bring
you're doing this because
pollution
you wanted
down to zero.
to encourage the youth. Because they're the demographic that's going to be the recipient of whatever happens to climate.
They're mostly 25 and below. You have to get their their attention because they're the ones that are gonna suffer the most. Remember that most of the money overseas are growing to rebuild back the country, as well as most corporates here don't understand that most of their employees are not from Manila, and so they're sending more and more money back to these storm-ravaged centers. Now, with us, you have to understand what's beautiful about Captain Planet is for the first time it was not about Superman and Batman that would fly in and rescue us and then leave. For me, it was so Filipino because the hero, the leader, were all from Asia and Africa, from the developing countries, leading the charge to save the planet. Now, they had to combine, let's our powers combine, to be able to save the world. So for me, growing up, my friend was the owner of this Hanna-Barbera, where they were producing, bring it to school, and I said, oh my gosh, Asians can change the world. It wasn't like waiting for Godot. It was actually, we can do something that can change the world. And so this brought up my belief that we have to do it in a very Filipino way. So if you look at the lights, it's bayanihan spirit. By combining the power of everyone being a solar engineer, every storm, we have an army of change makers. Not the typical, Western one, which is, I'm the hero, wait for me to come and save you. This is not the way that we feel that growing storms will happen.
It's an army of Captain Planets you want to bring forth. Well, I wish you luck in 2026.
Thank you
so much for bringing that and the costume and this
so excited.
Nice
we also have
there.
beautiful things from India where we're changing.
There you are, the handmade
for solar dias. We're trying to change the consumption of kerosene in India. And
looks like more work for you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Liliac Diaz, the founder of Leader of Light, joining us for People, Profit, Planet. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a great day ahead.